Okay. Hello and welcome to the Parsha class. Parshat Matot Masei, 5786, the last Parshiot of Sefer Bamidbar. I don't know why the video isn't working right now, but that's okay. We'll can still share the source sheet here. Beautiful. For those who don't know, for the last year or so, I've been working on a sefer, writing a book, finding references to food in the weekly parsha, laws of kashrut, health, etiquette, nutrition, some recipes, you name it, and I've tried to find it and put it all together into one book. This week's Parshiot are no exception. There's plenty of lessons about food in the Parsha. So we'll start with Matot. I have a little summary before each Parsha in parentheses to some of the ideas. In this Parsha, H-Shem and His Torah teaches us about the power of vows, the laws of kashering utensils, and more. So believe it or not, vows and utensils, which are the main really thrust of the Parsha, there's quite a bit there about food.
Oh, I think I have it on there. Thank you.
All right. So we'll start with chapter 30, verse 3. Moshe tells the Jewish people through the princes actually that ish ki yidur neder lashem, when a man vows a vow, right? Yidur neder lashem, hishava shvua lesor isar al nafsho, or makes a shvua, an oath, to bind his soul with a bond, or really lesor isar comes from the word isur, which means to forbid. When he does that, lo yachal devaro, he can't go against his word. He can't break his word. Which means everything that comes out of his mouth, he has to do. So what's interesting is, and this is a beautiful thing about really Judaism in general, is that we have 613 mitzvot, but if you decide, you make a vow, I'm not going to eat onions, you just made a 614th mitzvah for yourself. You have to do it. There are ways to get out of it. There's hataras nedarim. There's whatever. If you find out later, for whatever reason, that you didn't know, you thought onions were one thing, it turns out to be something else, or whatever. So there are ways to get out of it. But in general, the vow is binding. So in the commentary here, I have H-Shem includes in his Torah laws about nedarim, vows. These take on a level of obligation equal to Torah law. For instance, any food an individual vows to not eat becomes as forbidden to that person as pig. This is the Oznaim Torah says. And by force of a vow, neder, a person can only prohibit something that was otherwise permitted, like a specific kosher food. In other words, you can't make a vow, pig is forbidden to me. Right, so you can't do that. It has to be something that is ordinarily permitted, says Rashi. Although perhaps that only applies to oaths, to shvuot, as we'll see. The Ramban says that's not true. You can actually make a vow not to eat something that you're not allowed to eat. In other words, just expand a little bit. What the Ramban says, and he argues with Rashi about this, is that you can actually make a vow that forbids you from doing something that's already forbidden, to make it doubly forbidden for you. People would do that in order, if they knew that they personally had a problem. If you have some sort of, I don't know, bacon addiction, right? Or something like that. And obviously it's forbidden, but if you vow you're not going to have bacon, says the Ramban, that works, because now you have a double eating bacon is a double set of lashes, for instance. It's a double punishment. It's not just the bacon is, so now you're also breaking, now you're also breaking the prohibition of ignoring your own vows. So it makes it stronger. So hopefully you'll keep it better. So that's what the Ramban says against, by the way, against Rashi. That's nothing new, by the way, in Torah, in Chumash learning. The Ramban often disagrees with Rashi. That doesn't mean that either of them are wrong or wrong-headed or anything like that. It just means that there's an expanded way to learn it. And it could be that Rashi meant this also. He just meant it as he often says, he's just giving you the simple explanation. Ramban isn't worried about keeping things short. The Ramban can go on for pages if he needs to. So he has no limitations of keeping things simple. And for him, from his perspective, the Torah isn't supposed to necessarily be simple. And Rashi makes things sometimes complicated by oversimplifying something to the point where you need to comment on it. So that's what Ramban says in his introduction early on. Anyway, getting off subject here, back to our vows. If a person vows twice not to eat something and nevertheless eats it, the person is liable for 2 vows in one act, says the Ramban. That's how much it works. So each you can do multiple vows against let's say bacon. So now you're getting lashes for the bacon, and you're getting lashes for breaking the vow. If you make multiple vows, you're getting sets of lashes for each one of those vows. So that's how powerful the whole concept of vows is. The force of a neder is so strong. 2 people who make a neder to not eat each other's food may still eat at the same table, because the strength of their mutual hate, which is obviously what it is, right? Why would somebody vow not to eat somebody else's food, right? Obviously, they don't like each other very much. So their mutual hate will prevent them from sharing food. We're not worried, says the This is a halacha, by the way, quoted in the Shach. This is actually in regard to the concept over there where the Shach is writing is actually regarding 2 people eating together, say at an inn, where they're eating different kinds of foods. So let's say one's eating meat and one's eating dairy at the same table. So are they allowed to do that? So ordinarily there might be the possibility that they'll share their food or something like that. Unless they're strangers or unless they don't like each other, then they won't share their food. But this is a great example. If they made a neder not to eat each other's food,
or they didn't trust the kashrus,
right?
Had to slip that in.
Right. So, but if that's fine. That's fine. So, but the force of a neder is so strong that 2 people who make a neder not to eat each other's food can still eat at the same table, because they will definitely not share their food. Why they don't like each other that much that they're making a neder. All right. Then the Torah goes on to the next topic, which is still about nedarim, particularly the neder of a woman. This gets complicated, and of course, it's interesting that in the Sechta Nedarim is in the Seder Nashim. Right? It's because of this, because a lot of the nedarim that were made in especially older times. I don't know if it's still the case, but apparently a lot of nedarim were usually made by women, and to avoid the mistakes that happen when people make a neder, especially if they make a lot of them, there are ways that a woman, especially one who is living in her father's house, or if she's married, living under her living with her husband, they can, either the husband or the father can annul the vow, unbeknownst to her necessarily, unnecessarily.
If he's quiet,
Right.
he hears it.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. We'll get to that exactly, but we'll see that there's actually, according to the rabbis, there's actually a difference between the father's strength to do this and the husband's strength to do this. Where they have 24 hours, they both have only 24 hours to do this, first of all. But aside from that, a father can annul any vow that he hears her make, and a husband can only annul a vow if it affects him. So it's quite a difference. The Gemara talks about it. But so let's see how that works out. So the pasuk says, this is chapter 30, verse 4. Ve'isha ki tidur neder l'Hashem. Again, a woman who makes a vow to Hashem. The asra isra b'beit aviha, or makes a an oath in her father. So again, there's this difference between a vow and an oath.
Prohibited herself.
Right, exactly. Shvuah versus a neder. This is a prohibition against herself versus on the object. Is the cheftza versus the gavra, as they like to talk about in yeshiva sprach. But either way, binu reha in her youth. So she's living in her father's house. She's not married, and so the commentary here says a vow prohibiting oneself to eat otherwise kosher food only works if the vow is connected verbally to something that is also forbidden, like a sacrifice. Says the Malbim. In other words, right, whereas a vow neder can prohibit a specific item to a person, an oath, an isser or shvuah, whatever you want to call it, creates a prohibition on the person taking the oath from using a specified item. So, according to our sages, this is the Gemara in the Dagan says, if someone made a vow to avoid eating onions, I say I didn't make up the whole onion thing, because of a belief that they are bad for the heart. That came up. Somebody believed that for whatever reason. I'm pretty sure that's not in accordance with medical science nowadays. So anyway, so this person felt that way and made a vow. I'm not going to eat onions because it's bad for heart. But then he finds out, he learns, says the Gemara, that there's something called kufri onions. What are kufri onions? I have no idea. But he finds out that kufri onions are not bad for the heart. So when that happens, is he allowed to eat the kufri onions? Yes. And not only is he allowed to eat the kufri onions, but because because they don't have that kind of effect on him, around the heart in general, that person is excused from a vow from all onion-related vows. Since once a part of a vow becomes irrelevant, the entire vow becomes null.
It's like a low plug.
Exactly. Well, yeah. There's yes. There's an expression. I'm sorry.
Well, when you said in her youth,
Yeah.
what if she's less
Oh,
than 12?
Then her vows don't have any power at all.
Oh, okay.
Right. Until she's bat mitzvah, until she's 12, you can't make a vow until you're bar or bat
Oh,
mitzvah.
I see.
Right.
Bardas.
Bardat. Right. Good. Correct. So chapter 30, verse 6 says, V'im heini aviha ota, and if her father disallows the vow, right? And a lot of feminists used to get upset with this. It's not fair. He can ignore her words don't mean anything. This is him protecting her. she has an out.
Even minor makes some sort of contrary. Is ineffective?
This is not a minor though.
Right, because she's already 12 years old, but she's still in the house of her father.
Exactly. So she's under his domain, which by the way means that her vow will affect him somehow. Mm-hmm. Right? If she says, I'm not going to eat onions, now he has to make sure that there's no onions at the table, right? It's going to, his shopping has to be different. It's going to affect, if she says, I'm not going to go on a ride in the car, all right? She says, I'm not going to go on a ride in a car that's more than 20 miles. That's the end of their family road trips, right? So these things, that's why that works. So anyway, back to this. B'yom Shamo, the day that he heard, so it has to be that day. Any neder or any isser that she placed upon herself, any vow or oath that she placed upon herself, lo yakum, shall not stand. Hashem yislach lach, and Hashem and Hashem will forgive her. We'll see what that means in a moment. Ki heini aviha ota, because her father disallowed her. So if a woman's husband annuls her vow of becoming a Nazira unbeknownst, so let's say a woman decides to become a Nazira, we always think of only men becoming a Nazir. That's not the case. A woman can become a Nazira also. You just won't notice with the hair, but aside from that, the hair is the least of
it's a hairy situation.
Yeah. It's interesting. We always think of a nazir probably because of Shimshon. We always think of a nazir as somebody with long hair or whatever. But the fact is, the hair is just a sign of the nazirus. It's not the main thing. Right? It's the crown. It's the reminder that he's a nazir, that he's not supposed to go to funerals or drink wine or grape products, things like that. So that's the main thing about being a nazir. The hair is just a sign of that. It's just like a reminder. Right? It's like the tzitzis. So it's not the main mitzvah, it's the reminder of the mitzvah. Right? So like that. So so if a woman's husband annuls her vow of becoming a Nazira unbeknownst to her, and she then intentionally violates Naziras for whatever reason, she sees like a really nice grape juice and decides to drink it. She drinks wine. She needs forgiveness. She could get punished for that. Because she intentionally broke a vow that she had. This is Rashi, based on the Gemara in Kedushin. V'shem yislach la, v'Hashem yislach la. Sorry. And okay, next verse here says, chapter 30, verse.
And then know that. Wow.
Right. Even though you know
her intention was to.
Yeah, she wanted. She intentionally violated. She wants to. But so in that case, she needs kapara, right? Chapter 30, verse 14. Kol neder kol shvuat isar la'anot nefesh isha yikimenu v'isha yiferenu. Every vow and every binding oath, every oath to afflict to the soul, her husband may let it stand, or her husband may make it void. And again, all of this has to do with anot nefesh, personal affliction. That's going to be relevant again, as I told you before, because even vowing to not eat a specific food is considered a personal affliction, even if there remain other options. So if she says, I'm not going to eat French fries anymore, I make a vow. It's a popular vow nowadays, whatever. Right? So I'm not going to eat French fries anyway. They didn't used to have that in the Bible times. I don't know why. Anyway, I'm kidding. Oh yeah, that's probably it. The Gallic joke. All right. Anyway, so Gaelics. Whatever. Right. They weren't frying things and deep frying potatoes in oil. Also, by the way, potatoes weren't around.
Yeah.
Outside of Peru.
That's true.
Vasco da Gama hasn't.
Indigenous to Europe.
Yeah, Vasco da Gama hadn't destroyed the Aztec people for their potatoes yet. All right, so
Potatoes here on YouTube as well.
I think it is.
Click
Yeah, I have a history of
potato.
the history of the potato. Very fascinating stuff. All right. Okay, so aside from all that, big fan of potatoes myself, being Russian, you know. Usually we drink our potatoes.
Yeah.
Potatoes are actually very high in vitamin C. It's not a citrus fruit, but look it up. They're actually high in vitamin C.
Yes, they are. They are high in vitamin C. They're also, but only when they're cooked. Interestingly enough, a lot of foods get only activated. Just one of the miracles of nature, and actually not nature, one of the miracles of human participation with nature, that some foods only become healthier when they get cooked, like tomatoes and potatoes. It's interesting. Also, one of the foods that's highest in vitamin C is the pepper. Little known fact. A lot of people think you need to eat like oranges and but really you get more vitamin C from a bell pepper than you do from.
Bunch of those.
Good luck. All right. Good luck. It was nice knowing you as you fly to the bathroom to drink some water. All right. Anyway, whatever it is. So again. But if even vowing to not eat a specific food is considered a personal affliction, even if there remain other options. If a woman says, "I vow not to eat baked potato or French fries," and there's baked potatoes all around, there's plenty of other foods to eat. It's not like she's going to starve to death. It's still considered a personal affliction, and that means her husband can annul it. So that's the halacha. That comes from the source for that is the Tosefta and the Darim, etc.
When you say he annuls,
Yeah.
automatically, I mean, she doesn't have to come and say, "Look, I made the mistake."
Nope. She doesn't have to do anything. That's the benefit of being a woman. A man would have to, yes, would have to like go to a chacham,
yeah.
would have to say, I'm sorry, I made this vow, I feel bad, and I regret it, and I want to take it back because I see that I was wrong to do it. A woman has to do nothing, as long as, again, if she lives in her father's house and he annuls it on the day he heard it, or she lives in her husband.
She's
Here.
a widow or a grusha,
Then
she's stuck with it.
she's stuck with it. That's right. Just like men. Right. Okay. So next verse here, chapter 31. We're going to skip a whole chapter, chapter 31, verse 22. And now we're going to talk about kashering. Because what happened was there was a war with Midian, and the soldiers who fought the war brought back with them all kinds of utensils, mostly metal, gold, silver, copper, iron, tin, lead, as we'll see. And now we have an issue. Can these be used again? And we're going to learn halacha from this, which is interesting because a lot of people, maybe just me, maybe nobody else, but when I first learned about like the laws of toveling, the laws of kashering, they seemed very rabbinic in nature. They're not at all. They're almost like step by step. These laws are biblical, and there's hardly, as we'll see, there's very little rabbinic additions or anything to it. But we'll see there are some. All right, so chapter 31, verse 22 says, like I said, the gold, silver, copper, iron, tin, and lead. These are all metals. And so the soldiers brought these back, these utensils, these cooking utensils back from the Midianites, and they wanted to know if they could use them. So they're told, so besides the need to purify a Gentile-made vessel by immersion into a mikvah, which is what Sforno says, metal vessels used in the preparation of non-kosher food, right, need to be purged in boiling water. Hagala, right? This is Rashi. There's a Mishnah in Avodah Zarah 75a that goes into detail about this. Using any what can you do Hagala with? It has to be boiling, and we said water. Can you use anything else that boils? So using any other liquid for this purpose, like fruit juice, wine, or milk, is not acceptable under most normal circumstances. And when I say most normal circumstances, we'll see that, what do I mean? There are exceptions to that rule. So for example, I'll give you an example where we had to do that once. I was mishkiach at a catering event, and the caterer, there's other, I see there's other examples also. Forget that. Back up. Kosher restaurant has a fryer. They accidentally put something not kosher into the fryer. How do you kosher it now? It's metal. If you boil water in it, which you could do, then you'll have to wait a very long time for the water to dry up and everything else before you put oil in it, because water and oil are not a good combination. They're not a good mix for some reason. And so what you can do to kosher a fryer sometimes is you can kosher it with oil. Fill it up with oil, kosher it with oil. Once it gets to boiling point, you get the same effect as if it was water. Now, ordinarily, we don't do that, right? If we have all the time in the world.
You
But
have
if you
to
need
dispose of the oil?
afterwards, you should, yes.
The thing is, oil heats it out hotter, obviously hotter than water, is it not? It's just a matter of the
Because
thermal.
it kind of, but it doesn't. We wouldn't need that. We don't need anything higher than 212 anyway. So. But yeah, I mean, it's not more kosher because it's 240. So 250. It's at 3,000 degrees. It's super kosher. No, that's not. Right. It's melting my face. It's really kosher. Super kosher. So you wouldn't need to do that. But ordinarily we don't do that. We don't kosher with other liquids. And it's a big machloket if you did by accident. I don't know how that accident can happen. I thought this was water. Turns out it was milk. Oopsie poopsie. Right. So
Make it dairy?
huh? Milk would make it dairy. Yeah. If you
With the utensil.
yeah. But sometimes you need a dairy.
It was off his jaw, so.
Hey, there you go. So that's a good point. So, but people who ask people, there's a common question is whether they can use fruit juice to kosher something, just because they don't want the water to affect they want the fruit the taste, I don't know, in the walls of the keli or whatever it is. I don't know, wine. I'll give you another example where this happens. Sometimes chocolate manufacturers will want to kosher their equipment with other chocolate, right? Because they don't want to ruin the taste with or water down the taste with water. So they'll or any of the other soaps or anything, they'd prefer to do that. So there are kosher organizations, not the OU. OU says it's not. Rav Belsky Paskin against it, but there are kosher organizations that allow chocolate manufacturers to kosher their things with chocolate. Yeah, basically. Right? For
throw it out before you.
in order not to ruin the taste of their thing.
Could that chocolate be not kosher that they're using to?
What's not
No.
chocolate?
There's such a thing. I mean, depends on what the additives.
They got any adulterants.
Yeah, that's rare. They're not putting cocoa beans in it. They usually there's a manufacturing. There's oils and other things that they put into the chocolates. All right, so chapter 31, verse 23 is on the same topic. Kol davar asher yavo b'esh, and this is a very important concept in kashrut. Anything that is used in fire, taviru b'esh v'taher, has to go through fire, and then it's clean, then it's taher. B'mei nida yitchata. Nevertheless, it should be purified in the water of sprinkling, right? In the waters of the nida, technically. V'chol asher bo yavo b'esh, and anything that was used in fire, taviru b'mayim. You can anything that was not used in fire, you can make go through water. So this is not talking about the toveling process. This is the kashering process. So a metal utensil used for cooking non-kosher food without water needs to be torched with a fire, right? Needs libun gamor, it's called. If the utensil had been used for cooking with water, it is koshered with water. It has to be boiled.
The same idea of like the purpose of it.
How it's used is how it gets kosher.
I've been in hope.
Right. No, it has to be fully covered.
Have a blowtorch ready to take care of the situation.
So the blowtorch again. So first of all, in my entire career in kashrut, I've only used the blowtorch maybe once. It's not a good tool to use. I mean, people like it because it looks cool, and then the pyromaniacs or whatever. But but the fact is, it's very, very difficult. It's very dangerous, which might not matter to some people, but in my estimation, I think when something's very dangerous, people don't do as well of a job with it because they're worried about getting hurt. So they're not really thinking about, let's say I wanted to kosher this entire surface with a blowtorch. Let's say it wasn't paper. All right, I want to kosher this this is metal. All right, this is a sheet of stainless steel. All right, and I want to kosher all of it. How would I do that? I would have to make every part of it red hot, every part of it. Not like just like go over it once. Oh, it's been torched. You have to wait and see for this part to get red. Then move over here, and it's tedious, and it's hot. It's a blowtorch. Unless you're doing it, in Alaska, it's gonna take a long time. It's gonna be very tedious, and you have to do it very carefully. And imagine this is one sheet. Imagine you have to do a whole kitchen like this. So a blowtorch is not always the best method. It's not what I like to use. Using the oven itself is probably a much better way to do it. Put this inside an oven. Put the oven on self-clean, and when it's self-cleaned, this is going to be red hot at some point. It's going to be 500 degrees or whatever. So you're good like that. Anyway, if the utensil
Temperature with water, or is it temperature with fire? Like you mentioned, like you put it in the oven.
I forget what it is. There's a temperature that's supposed to make metal red hot. If you don't know what the number is, there's a way.
I mean, the copper is going to be different.
Right. They're different metals. Right. That's true. Right, that's true. That's true. Different metals heat up at different temperatures. So the method we in the kashrus world usually check to see if metal has gotten to that point is once it's off, not on. If we take a piece of paper and touch its tip to it, and if it singes, then you know it's hot enough. Then you know it's like you turn off the burner, right? You want to kosher a burner. That's the most common thing to kosher, right? Kosher a burner, you turn it up to the highest temperature, keep it on for half an hour, whatever it is, and then turn it off, touch a piece of paper to it, and see what happens. And if be careful, obviously, and don't try this at home if you don't know what you're doing. Be aware that things can catch fire. Yeah, but so that's the trick. None. Nice try, pyromaniac in the room. That's how you find the pyromaniac in the room. All right. Use the word lighter fluid. Okay. If the utensil has been used for cooking with water, it is kosher with water. If it was used for grilling, it needs to be made white hot with fire. In fire. This works because of a concept called, this is an important concept, kibolo kachpolto. Not to be confused with Balto, the dog that saved the Alaskan village. All right, so kibolo kachpolto, things expel the same way that they absorb. As something absorbs is the same way that it expels. If it absorbs things through water, that means it'll expel things through water. If there's a taste that's not kosher in a pot or a pan because of fire, then it'll come out through fire. That's the idea. Without expelling the forbidden taste, it would remain in the walls of the utensil and would thus become an issue.
Was that with oil? Like if the oil, you shake it up or whatever?
So non-kosher, so kosher oil shouldn't trafe it up. I think
I'm saying like whatever.
right. So right. Again, the issue there was that ordinarily you shouldn't use anything but water. It's allowed to use oil in some cases like that when you're in a hurry to use the fryer right afterwards. And if you use water, it's going to ruin the.
So there's a concept in those say a Taam, like I've heard off.
Good. Taam ki'ikr is the concept. Right. So if you what Taam ki'ikr means, the taste is like the thing. So the pot that absorbed. Let's go back to bacon again. The pot that absorbed bacon is now a bacon pot. Don't bacon in the pot. All right. So it's the pan or whatever you use to cook it now has the taste of that thing in it. The Torah's use of the term ma'avir ba'esh, passing through fire, implies keeping a thing in fire for a limited time. What do you mean when you say you're passing through something? You don't stay there, right? It's just going through, which means
passing through Moloch, you know?
right, exactly. Yeah. You're not burning it to ashes. The Ramban says it means here you're not burning it to ash. And by the way, he says this about Moloch actually. Interestingly enough, the Ramban. That's the Ramban there mentions that passing through doesn't mean killing. He disagrees with Rashi. Rashi says that giving your sons to Moloch means killing your sons for Moloch. The Ramban says no, it's just passing them through fire, maybe making them walk on fire or whatever for the god or whatever. So that's where he applies that to this because here when you're koshering metal, you don't want to destroy it. No. You want to use it after. The whole point is you want to use it after. Yeah, you don't want to do that. You want to use the same thing, right? So it's supposed to just pass through. In order to eat or drink from vessels bought from non-Jews, the vessels need to be submerged in a mikveh containing at least 40 sa'ah of rainwater. So that's a basic definition here of what a mikveh is. 1 second. Aside from being koshered. So again, if it's treif, it needs to be koshered, and then it needs to be put in the mikveh. One should first kosher the vessel before immersing it in a mikveh. If one toveled the pot first, before koshering, what do? It is actually a matter of dispute amongst the Rishonim whether the tefillah was effective at all. So, if one were to do the reverse, there is an opinion that tefillah should be repeated without a bracha because of the uncertainty of its effectiveness. I think that's the shach. Nonetheless, others write that if the pot had not been used in the past 24 hours, one may tovel before kashering, since the non-kosher taste that had presumably been absorbed in the pot is detrimental. There's an idea that after 24 hours, the taste is actually a bad taste. It's not something somebody would want. It's called Taam livgam, and so you don't want that. And so that would be then you don't have to kosher something technically. At least on a Torah level, you wouldn't have to kosher it. Rabbinically, you would kosher it anyway.
But that's just talking about used utensils.
Yeah.
Not something that you buy new at the store.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, but if you bought it new from the store, you don't need to kosher it.
No.
All you need to do is put it take it to the mikveh. Whereas the koshering is meant to remove any possible taste of non-kosher food from the vessel, those metal utensils that were only used with cold, non-kosher foods need only be immersed in the mikveh without the koshering process, altogether. The toveling is thus meant to focus our attention on the holy purpose behind our eating, and that's kind of one of the focuses that of the work I've been writing anyway.
Kind of the mark of a potash, right? It's like the last step that you're gonna have before you can utilize the utensil.
Right.
And it's part of the process of making the utensil so that it's a kosher utensil.
Exactly. Right. One of the lessons, one of the questions people ask is, why is this the place in the Torah where we're learning about this? Of all places, we could have had in Vayikra, we could have all the laws of kosher, non-kosher. It was all there. So one of the lessons in the Jews having to submerge only those dishes that they purchased from Gentiles is because at the precipice of entering the Holy Land, they need to learn the lesson that a country needs to be self-sufficient. It has to be our stuff. These are our vessels. Not if we get vessels from somewhere else, we need to do something to them. There's something wrong with other people's stuff. We need to be self-sufficient and not rely on anyone else. The Hagyono Torah writes. And one last thing in Parsha Matot, chapter 31, verse 24. And you shall wash your clothes on the v'hibastem bigdehem b'yom hashvi. On the seventh day, you're supposed to wash your clothing. V'tahartem, they become clean. V'achar tavo el hamachane, and then you can go back into the camp. Besides being kashered and toveld, these dishes also need to first be scrubbed of any residue, says the Ramban. Another reason.
Can't have any pizza. I mean, you can't have any pizza. You can't have anything that's blocked.
Right, you have to clean it first.
It's so hard. Sometimes you're taking things to the mikvah. You know those labels that they put on.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Adhesives. It's hard to peel them.
Yeah. Another reason for the Jews are told of this law at this point is because the items pillaged from Og and Sichon are actually permissible without consideration of kosher laws, because their land is part of the Jews' future inheritance. So because it's kind of like the stuff from Og and Sichon is kind of like Jewish stuff to begin with. It's ours. We're just getting it back. We own it. We've always owned it. As soon as Abraham had the promise. About food, halachos relevant exclusively in Eretz Yisroel, the importance of gardens, the consequences of behaving as we should of not behaving as we should in Eretz Yisroel, and more. Chapter 33, verse 1. And this, of course, Parsha Matot, Parsha Masei deals with, it basically starts off with a huge list, very long aliyah today. I don't know if you noticed. The fourth aliyah is very long, it goes into the huge.
244 verses.
How many?
244.
Dang, that's the Matot Masei together, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Together.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, not one. Yeah.
It's the longest one, 160.
174, right? That's not so. Yeah, pretty sure. It's also the longest capital in Tehillim is also 174 psukim. 119. Yes. 70.
How many verses do you have altogether?
It's 22 letters, 8 times each.
176 verses.
170. So it's 176. Yeah.
Right, 8 times the 22 letters.
That's
of the
right.
alphabet.
That's right.
Which stuff though also is 176.
That's above Mitzvah, right?
Oh,
So one and above us.
very nice.
Yeah. That number keeps repeating itself.
Just
The-
like,
the-
just like 42, right? In 42, we had the Shema and the Anav Koyach in the name of one of the names of H-Shem, which is some sort of ethereal name. But this idea of this 42 is a journey.
Yeah.
Something to
Yes,
42.
journeys. Speaking of the journeys, let's get back to Masei. That's exactly what it is. All right. Ele Masei ben Yisrael sheyetu me'eretz Mitzrayim tzivos Taam biad Moshe ve'Aaron. These are the stages of the children of Israel by which they went forth out of the land of Egypt by their hosts under the hand of Moshe and Aaron. The journeys are recorded here in order for future generations. This is the Rambam writes, I think. Yeah, Rambam and more in Levuchim. It just asks the question: why do we need a list of these journeys? In order for future generations to realize that during the 40-year trek through the wilderness, the Jews stayed in what would have been uninhabitable places, had it not been for Hashem's providing them with their food, shelter, and other resources. So future generations need to know, especially if future generations will know where these places are. He knew, Rambam knew some of these places were, and he lived in Egypt, right? And so, like, nobody can live there. We just like think now, like we can live in Tucson when it's 130 degrees, but only because there's air conditioning, right? What did people use to do? They didn't really live there. It wasn't the most popular place in the world. It wasn't.
It's not just 600,000 plus men from 2060. You got all the women and children.
Women and children, older people.
The people in the Syrian desert for years.
Yeah.
You need constant resupply. If you're in the military right now, you have to be constantly resupplied.
Yeah. It's not easy. It's not easy for military now. Imagine for women, children, older people. Yeah. They had people over 60. Aaron died, he was 123, right? So it goes. That's next week is his yard site, by the way. Rosh Chodesh. Mentioned in this week's Parsha, the only yard site in the entire Torah that's mentioned specifically. Your great grandpappy.
Didn't they say something in like Baker or something that you couldn't live past 120?
Yes, whatever that means. Right.
So there were people that lived. The Tanakh bets 130. Yohayakin. There were people that lived over 120 years old.
Right. Yes. Moshe lived to 120. That's where it says it.
Yoash Yohakin, which was Cohen, he actually lived to 130 years old. It says in the Tanakh, and actually, it's very interesting because Yoash went the way of Hashem all the way. Yohakin was taking care of it, but once he died, he went Batar Basra. And we see that in Divrei Yomim. So often you have to correlate Divrei Yomim with what's going on back in the Tanakh to get the rest of the story. Like with Menashe, for instance. He was so wicked that for 55 years he had the streets of Yerushalayim running with blood. Right. But then you go and you look at Divrei Yomim and he talks about Tshuva.
Great. Correct. All right, so and then again the verses they go pretty repetitively. They camped there, then they moved over here. They camped there, and they moved over here. V'yusum Alush, and they journeyed from Alush. V'yachrim b'Refidim, and they pitched their tents in Refidim. V'lohaya shamayim la'am, and they lishtot, and they didn't have water there to drink. So this is obviously food related. The Torah mentions the Jews being thirsty in Refidim, but does not mention the miracle of Hashem giving them water. Why doesn't it? Wouldn't this be? Huh?
They wouldn't have the well of Miriam anymore, right?
This is when they got the well of Miriam. Refidim. No, we're not talking about Mei Meriva. Okay. Right. So by Refidim, that's where they complained about water, and they got this miracle. So why doesn't this verse mention that miracle? So the Darash Moshe, Rav Moshe Feinstein says, is because had they been of stronger faith, they would have had a greater miracle than a traveling well, which is, by the way, a pretty big miracle, right? I don't know if you know this, but wells don't usually travel. They don't travel well. That joke.
His water cut off, so I sent him a get well card.
Yeah, that's good. That joke was the pits. It's all right. Anyway,
Very
dry humor. All right, but anyway, so Rav Moshe says they could have done even a bigger miracle if they would have been of greater faith. They would have had miraculously lost their thirst altogether. Now, who says you need to be thirsty? Who says you need to drink? Not. By the way, there are creatures that don't need to. So we could have Hashem could have made a miracle, snapped his allegorical fingers, and all of a sudden nobody would be thirsty anymore. But no, we're not strong in faith yet at that point, and so therefore we got a weaker miracle of a traveling well, which is quote unquote
Pretty
weak.
amazing miracle.
Yes, agreed. Okay, chapter 34, verse 2. Savat ben Israel commanded Judah. So this is already after the list of all the travels. The Jewish people are now given a certain command specific to living in the land of Israel because they are about to. This is basically the end of the Torah because starting with next week's Parsha of Devarim, it's basically Moshe's farewell, a very, very long 40-day farewell speech.
Recap.
Right, a basic recap of the entire Torah and some other little details about certain laws that weren't really mentioned or whatever. But this is basically the end of the Torah proper because the Jews are right now literally on the border with Israel. They're about to go in. So Savet ben Israel command the Jewish people. De'amarta alehem, say to them, Ki atem baim el haaretz Canaan, as you enter the land of Canaan. Zot haaretz, this will be the land that will come to you as your inheritance. Eretz Canaan, the whole land of Canaan according to its borders. Okay, so the Torah lists the borders of Israel. Why? Because there are certain laws, mostly, by the way, food related. Back to food, but mostly food related that apply only within those borders. Says Rashi.
Whether you're in Syria or not, for instance, right? Is that one of the common distinctions?
Yeah, that's one of them.
Well, I think Elat also there's
Yeah,
some doubt whether it's actually within the borders.
there's some discussion about that.
The future, yeah.
Maybe in the future, but that's
That's not what they.
yeah, not yet, not yet. Chapter 35, verse 4. Umigrishe ha'arim asher tidnu lelevim makir ha'ir v'chutza elef ama saviv. So the Levium received. One second, I need to take something here. It's one of the benefits of doing this here. The open land about the cities which you shall give to the Levium shall be from the wall of the city and outward 1,000 cubits round about. Why do they have all of this? 1,000 cubits. That's 2,000 feet, almost a mile, right? That they had all around the city. Why? The open spaces in the Levite cities act as gardens, and it's actually forbidden to grow food there, says Rashi.
I thought you said acted gardens, but then forbidden to grow food.
Food, gardens, decorative gardens.
Oh, decorative. Okay.
Decorative gardens, yes. I have a little bit about lawns. Anybody interested about the history of lawns? Because I like to throw in some history into this book. So before the 19th century, lawns, in any meaningful sense, were the preserve almost exclusively of owners of stately homes and institutions with large grounds because of the cost of maintaining them. For those who wished to have a greensward, there were only two options. The first was to keep a flock of sheep. That was actually the option chosen for Central Park in New York, which until the end of the 19th century was home to a roaming flock of 200 sheep, superintended by a shepherd who lived in the building that was the Tavern on the Green. The other option was to employ a dedicated team of people who would spend the whole of every growing season scything, gathering, and carting away grass.
Yeah.
Both options.
When they get nice and fat, that you can enjoy them.
Yes,
Delicious.
but they wouldn't.
They have the Egyptian
But-
god, and it was delicious.
Both options were expensive and neither gave a very good finish. Even the most carefully scythed lawn was, by modern standards, rough and clumpy, and a sheep grazed lawn was even worse. The lawnmower was the invention of one Edwin Beard Budding, a foreman at a cloth factory at Stroud, Gloucestershire. I'm not going to pronounce that right.
Gloucestershire.
That's the one, Gloucestershire, who in 1830, while staring at a machine used to trim cloth, hit on the idea of turning the cutting machine on its side, putting it into a smaller contraption with wheels and a handle, and using it to cut grass. Considering that no one had ever thought to mow grass before, this was quite a novel concept. Even more remarkable was that Budding's machine is eventually patented, anticipated the look and operation of the modern cylinder mower to a startling degree. It differed in just two critical respects. First, it was immensely heavy and difficult to maneuver. James Farabee and Co., a manufacturer of Budding's mower, promised in a prospectus that owners of the new machine, not interestingly gardeners or estate workers, but the owners themselves, would find that it provided, quote, an amusing, useful, and healthy exercise, end quote, showing happy purchasers walking with the machine as if pushing a baby carriage across a smooth surface. In fact, the Budding machine,
Black.
in fact, the budding machine was exhausting. The operator not only had to engage a heavy clutch and grip it fiercely, but then had to lean into the machine with all his might to make it move, manhandling it into a new position. At the end of each row was barely possible without assistance. The other distinctive problem with Budding's machine was that it didn't cut very well. Because it was so heavy and poorly balanced, the blades often eerily spun helplessly above the grass or bit savagely into the turf. Only intermittently did they leave in their wake smoothly cropped grass. The machine was also expensive. In consequence of all this, it failed to sell in any great numbers. For many people today, gardening is about lawns and almost nothing else. In the United States, lawns cover more surface area, 50,000 square miles, than any single farm crop. Grass on domestic lawns wants to do what wild grasses do in nature, namely grow to a height of about 2 feet, flower, turn brown, and die. To keep it short and green and continuously growing means manipulating it fairly brutally by pouring a lot of stuff onto it. In the western United States, about 60% of all the water that comes out of taps for all purposes is sprinkled on lawns. Worse still is the amounts of herbicides and pesticides, 70 million pounds of them a year, that are soaked into lawns. It is
actually ultimately.
Yeah, it is.
Too, right?
Yeah, that's right. It is deeply ironic that for some of us, keeping a handsome lawn is about the least green thing we do. This is from Bill Bryson's book At Home. All right, back to some Torah. A few more comments on the Parsha, chapter 35, verse 28. Ki be'ir milaktu yeshev ad mot hakohen hagadol, v'achri mot hakohen hagadol yashuv harotzeach el eretz achuzato. So the Torah starts talking about something called an accidental killer, a manslaughterer, right? An accidental killer, and he goes to a city of refuge, where first he has to actually await trial. There were at least six. Six were the cities of the Levium, and then there were exactly there were wherever the Levium lived was basically a Levite city. There were six specific ones, and then there were more where the Levium lived. So, but where they awaited trial there, and after the trial, if they were found to be an accidental killer and not an intentional murderer, if they were an intentional murderer, they would be just killed. There's a death penalty for murder with the witnesses and warning and all that other stuff. But if he didn't get those things, then he's an accidental killer, in which case he stays and lives in that city of refuge until the Kohen Gadol dies. Why the Kohen Gadol?
The Kohen Gadol's mother.
That's exactly what we're about to say. Food related. He has the food related part of this is the mother of the Kohen Gadol would feed accidental killers because their prayers for their freedom through his death would be less sincere when they are not hungry. Says says Naim Torah. Exactly. Right. Two more things. Chapter 35, verse 29. And these things shall be for a statute of judgment for you throughout your generations in all your dwellings. So it happens to be the laws regarding eating forbidden fats and chadash, which is a new grain, are still relevant while we are, Rahman al-Islam, in exile, which is why, especially Sephardim, are very careful not to eat new grain. They only eat yashan, which is old grain. It's the reason why we count the Omer. Little known fact: we count the Omer in order to know when we can eat when we can start eating the new grain. Exactly. So that's so that. But the point is we learn that from the fact that it says here that these will be your statutes in all of your dwelling places, not just Israel, all your dwelling places, including outside of Israel. That's the point of that comment from the Ramban, I believe. Yes. Okay, chapter 35, verse 33, last comment for tonight. It says, Lo tachanifu et haaretz. Do not, and it's usually translated as pollute, do not pollute the land, asher etem ba, that you are going to be on. Ki dam hu yachnif et haaretz, because blood will pollute the land. In other words, don't be killers. Haaretz lo yichupar, and the land will not forgive you. V'dam asher shupach ba, the land, the blood that you spill there, ki im bedam shofcho. It's because it'll be by the blood of the person who shed it. Now, what does that have to do with food? I'm glad you asked. The Hebrew word that Hashem uses in the Torah here to describe the pollution of the land is sachanifu, tachanifu. Hanifa is usually known as flattery. Good. Very good. Yes, correct. It's usually associated with false flattery in particular. So the reason for this is that the word means that the word means doing the opposite of what something would seem. This is the Ramban actually. He explains it like this. In this case, right? So what's false flattery? I'm saying somebody's great, and I don't really believe that. So it's the opposite of what I really, of how I really feel. So in this case, the Holy Land will perform opposite of how it should if we misbehave on it. It's supposed to grow things. We're supposed to get things out of it. But if for the sin of idolatry, immorality, and murder, the land will withhold our produce, as we find out later on in Sefer the Devarim, where it talks about you're gonna plant trees. It's not gonna grow fruit. You're gonna plant olives. They're gonna be eaten by the birds. All these things. So you're not gonna get what you're supposed to. That's what Hanifa is. The opposite of what you expect is what's going to happen. There's going to be the switch around. So that's some food-related ideas in this week's Parshiot.
Food for thought.
Thank you very much. Enjoy. I hope you enjoyed, and
Rabbi,
I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Late for me too. Got a busy morning tomorrow morning. Go ahead, brother. Thank you so much.
Of course.